Hey Rebels, my name is Matthew Barton. Welcome to the Rebellion Brewing Podcast. As of this recording, gas prices in Regina are an eye-watering $1.71 per liter, which means it makes more sense than ever to pump pedals instead of gas. Today, I'm sitting down with local cycling legend Freddie Vandelinden from Dutch Cycle to drink beer and talk about the family business. So let's get into it. Freddie, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here.
It's been too long to get you here on the show, I think. I've had a couple of friends who are in cycling, and they're like, man, you got to get Freddie on the show.
I think it was just a matter of time before our paths were going to cross. We were on a collision course.
So how's it going?
It's going great. The weather's breaking, and we're starting to think about moving from riding our bikes inside, going nowhere, to actually enjoying them outside and getting some wind in our hair and not feeling frozen.
Oh, hair. You're just teasing me now. Got no hair on my head here. When someone thinks of Dutch Cycle, I don't want to presume any knowledge. So for the neophytes who maybe haven't entered your shop, what is the experience that they can expect?
Dutch Cycle is a family-run business that is a little rough around the edges. I think people love Dutch Cycle because we're fair with pricing, we're honest, we're downright gruff some days, and it feels like a local family experience. It's not dry like a corporate type of experience.
In my mind, for years and years, it was, if you got questions about bikes, you want to know what you need to know about bikes. Even if you're just casual, go talk to the guys at Dutch. They'll take care of you.
That's been the attitude, and it's never been presumptuous that, if you don't have a bike that's $5,000 or greater, we can't be friends. So the idea is fostering a community of cycling from the ground up that ends up feeding cyclists into more advanced clubs from there.
Well, say somebody's got a bike or they're looking to get into it because, hey, man, we're coming out of the pandemic. Now I got to shed a few pounds,
Don't we all?
I got a little chubby over pandemic. What should they do? They walk in, they see you. What should they do?
Well, the biggest thing to consider is what you want to do with your bike. And it's our philosophy to all customers that walk in is to ask a few questions and figure out the what, the where, and the why. And once we know what you're going to use your bike for, we can give you a recommendation, because it can get a little intimidating when you walk into a store and see 300 bikes on a showroom floor. You're kind of wondering, well, where do I need to be in this room? So we kind of help get the choices narrowed down and then move you towards more logical choices for the experience you're looking for.
I have friends who ride bikes, and their whole attitude is, someone is in front of me, I have to pass them.
They might wear spandex too.
I don't ride like that, though. I'm like, please don't run me over, because this city's insane.
It's been a constant struggle for years with motorists and just the attitude towards cyclists and sharing the road with an F-150. There's certain limitations that have come to our attention, needless to say.
Have you ever been hit by a car? I've been hit by a car twice.
Wow.
Yeah.
Knock on wood, as of today, no. My dad has. He got T-boned really badly. And yeah, you don't have to be around cycling long to know people that have had a negative experience that way.
Like, I have a buddy with, he rigged a GoPro up to his helmet, and he was flying down Vic. And he turned his head, and he saw the car, like, charge at him. He got his bike lock, and he's like, tonk. He's like, wake up,
I don't think, I think people do it out of fun almost. I want to rattle the cyclist, but it's dangerous, and it's it's disturbing behavior because we're just wanting to ride our bikes home to get back to our families or get to work. So yeah, it's very scary when you hear about stuff like that.
But on the same hand, we've also seen the city start building more bike lanes. And
Yes.
we're at least having those conversations. What do you think the state of cycling is for the city of Regina?
I think the state is people are scared to ride their bike, honestly. Talking to a lot of customers buying bikes for the sake of commuting, the first hurdle is a safe route to get to work. How can I do it with minimal overlap with traffic? And through the years, the city has attempted to do paths. The continuity of the paths would be the thing in question, because you can ride a bike path so far and then find yourself out on roads with no real direction. So I hope that with their master plan, the transportation plan, that they keep working towards more unification of the existing paths. I don't think a ton of money has to be spent to get people to ride their bikes. I think, as you said right off the top, the gas price is the aggravator that has us looking for an alternative at this point.
Well, are people coming to you and saying, look, man, I'm trying to save some bucks. I'm hitting my bike.
We see it. There was a few years ago where we had a real gas hike, and that's where I was mentioning I coined the pump pedals, not gas sale. It was like every time it went up another dime, you had a new wave of people coming in. So here we are at 171. What happens if it hits $2? One can only imagine how people will reconfigure themselves to get where they need to go.
When I think about my route, I'm based out of the East End, and I kind of have to take the paths. I think the safest route is to go through the university and then downtown.
That's right, yes.
There's no real nice way down Vic. There's no kind of straight shot. I kind of have to detour.
That's right, and that's sort of what we've been pushing for, but of course bike shops pushing for more bike lanes is a little bit of a conflict of interest. So we hope that the audience speaking out to our city superiors will be listening.
One of the things I was really excited to sit down and talk to you about is cycling and beer culture and connecting those two, because a lot of people don't realize, but beer is integral to cycling, especially in Europe.
Absolutely it is. And there's a pub every 10 or 15 kilometers, it seems, in Belgium when you're riding your bike. And it's culture. Cycling and beer is just culture. It's a European thing, and it's feels so good to put two things I love basically equally side by side.
Tell me about riding in Belgium. What's that like, man?
It's so fun. We started doing it a few years ago. I was fortunate enough to be going to Germany to book bikes with a company called Cube. And when I would fly home, I'd always stop in Amsterdam because I have family in Holland. And I started renting a car, and I made the pilgrimage to West Vleteren and to St. Bernardus bed and breakfast. And that was my first experience in sort of beer heaven, if you will. And didn't actually ride a bike the first year I went. It was just so floored by the culture and by what was around me. Very similar to Saskatchewan with the rolling wheat fields and the smells of agriculture wafting through the air. It was on the second year going back that I decided to rent a bike, and rode through Papa Rain, through Ypres, through Vleteren, and just drank my way through it all. It was incredible. It's a lifetime experience.
Were you riding solo or with family and friends? How does it work?
I've done it solo a couple times, and recently, the last 3 years, my dad started coming along and meeting me over in Europe, and we've just had a wonderful time together. He's equally as nuts about beer. He collects beer cans. He's a beer nut as well. So it was only fitting to go with your best friend, your dad.
And he's kind of a local legend, too, in the cycling scene, right?
Yeah, and we share a name, so there's something there. It's usually Fred. Which Fred? It's Fred 1, Fred 2, and when we had Grandpa, there was Fred 3. So, yeah, it got a little confusing when you'd call the shop and just want to speak with Fred.
I was talking with my mom last night, literally about how you're coming on the pod, and she goes, "Oh yeah, Fred," and I'm like, "Well, you have to be more specific. Which one?"
Yeah, exactly. Fred middle, Fred young, Fred old. Fortunately, well, I shouldn't say fortunately, but there's less of us now, so it's getting a little clearer as to who's who.
One of the things I took away from your story about traveling through Europe is you go, similar to craft beer, you travel abroad, you see how it's done elsewhere, and you come back and you have this vision and you say, things could be different, things could be better. And when Mark was traveling across Europe and traveling across the States, and our other founders traveling to Europe and tasting Orval and all those great beers, they came back and they said, we got to build something like that here. And now we're getting there. We're getting awards. We're seeing a lot more beer in breweries. And now it feels like you have that similar experience with cycling. Is that accurate?
I would definitely say so. I mean, we've been a cultural icon in the bike world here in the city now for 60 years. And my push, hopefully, is to do my Saturdays. I've stepped back a little bit from the retail operations at the store because there's so much more to running the business now. But a dream of mine has always been to have a weekly bike ride that would end up at a pub. And it would just be a fun bike ride. You'd kick each other's butt during the ride, and then you'd enjoy each other's company afterwards. And that's something that is very normal in Europe, and it's every small village. I have to laugh. The one time I was having beer in Germany in a small town, and I believed it was a local beer, and I was sipping on this beer, and a German guy comes up and says, "Oh, you've got to try something local." And I looked at him and I said, "Well, it's like from your small That was from 6 kilometers away, so it wasn't local. So they have beer local every 5-6 kilometers, it seems, and it's all different, just enough.
And that sounds like a big culture piece that you want to bring to the city.
Yeah, I think it'd be really cool. And having the bike shops in the city, in the warehouse district, having great pubs in the warehouse district, I don't think that it would be too unreasonable of an ask. I think the best thing that could happen is just have more safe parking for bikes so people could do it and not worry about losing their said bike when they're enjoying their beers.
I know guys have come to the tap room, gotten a flat tire on their bike, and just go to Dutch. They're literally a 5-minute walk that way. And I just point, and they're like, "Really? Oh, yeah." And then they just go. They drop their bike off, come back, like, "Well, I'm going to have a couple pints. I'm stuck here for a while."
Yeah, exactly. It's a perfect world. So it's nice that everything's so close together, and it's great that, like I say, we have the opportunity to have such a beer culture in this city. It's really changed a lot in the last 8 years, I think we can both agree.
So if we have that beer culture and we have that cycling culture, now we can marry the two things.
Here's the hope. I've been doing it for a long time, so and I know when I talk to my friends, they're equally as eager. It's just it's an experience that we need to really, I think we need to try it and we need to push it and see if we can get more people riding.
Well, let's talk about today's beer, which is specially selected for riding your bike.
Beautiful. You can't go wrong with that.
This is the 2022 version of Golden Crush. So a little history on this beer. It started off as a hazy session pale ale.
Okay.
Or an IPA. We started off calling it a session hazy IPA.
Okay.
But we found it was confusing to many people, and we had tweaked the recipe a few times over the years. So this is the 2022 version, and I know you've had it before in the past, years before, so I was curious to hear what you taste and what you perceive, maybe if you feel it's a little bit different or if it's that same great flavor that you've come to kind of dig.
It's definitely the same great flavor, but with a little extra hop bomb, I feel, this year. There's a little more forward hop flavor I seem to taste. Now, my last Golden Crush would have been about last October or so memory could be a little foggy. Might have had a beer or two along the time since. But it's beautifully hazy, super smooth, And like I say, the hop forwardness is just right. This is my wife's favorite beer. Some of the others are just a little too hop heavy or a little too malty in taste. They're a little much. This is kind of like hot weather beer, bring it on! Exclamation point.
I think you were correct in saying that in October it felt a little less hop forward.
Yes.
Because they would have faded over the time from, like, this is fresh. We just canned this last week. So you're going to notice that really extra aggressive flavor and aroma. But as time goes on, it's going to chill. It's going to pull back. So I think you're correct in your perception of what was going on with last year's. Okay.
Because, the flavor of this beer is excellent. And like I say, just the ease of its drinking. I mean, I love my double IPAs, but you're probably not going to have 4 or 5 of those on a patio and walk away.
When I was helping out a friend last year, like plus 40, remember when we had that heat wave and it hung out for like 4 days around plus 40?
Yeah.
You couldn't even hang out in the basement. It was just hot. And I was walking outside for about 2 hours, just dying. And I got home, and I was like, fuck this. And I cracked a Golden Crush, and I think it was the best beer I had in my entire life. But just because I was dying.
And it went down like now.
Oh. I drank it in like 3 minutes. My wife's like, slow down.
Yeah. I've used these beers as recovery drinks after hard rides, and my dad and I'll do 100-kilometer rides in the spring, and we'll finish on my patio with the beer. So that's why we're really excited to maybe try some pub patios with some beer and tacos. But it's important one definitely includes water as his recovery plan, because 2 or 3 beer only after 100 kilometers with no food, yeah, I've tested that water. It's not so fun.
I was reading an article about how one beer after a really hard ride, like a workout, not just like lifting weights. I'm not talking about lifting weights. I'm talking about when you're going hard rowing or cycling, you're doing that high level, high energy kind of sprint style piece. You have one beer, and that is actually ideal for your body because it has what's in the beer, the nutrients, the pieces, I'm struggling for words here, the mineral content.
Yeah.
All those things line up. And that one beer is just what your body needs. And I know doctors and medical professionals be rolling their eyes and like, just drink water. But I'm like, trust me, the article, it was like this academic piece, and I'm blanking on the name now.
I just read a similar article out of St. Bernardus's page, and it was a picture of cyclists at a pub after a hard ride enjoying a beer, and it was a similar statement that one beer, it must be the carbohydrates in it, it must, like you say, be the trace elements. 1 works, 3 maybe not so good. But if we fortify it with some food, we've got some balance.
Yeah. Everything in balance.
Everything in balance.
People say to me, oh man, you work for a brewery, you must drink so much. And I'm like, no, not really. I'm more drinking for the experience, to find that perfect beer.
Yes.
I'm not drinking to get wasted.
It's quality, not quantity. It's the same thing in Belgium when you're riding and enjoying beers. There's no way you're going to drink 10% beers in an afternoon riding your bike and still get home safely. So it's definitely quality over quantity with this type of beer. It's to be enjoyed.
But then that means you also you got to go for another bike ride.
That's good. If that's the motivator, I'll do it all day. We just hope the wind stays down a little bit this year. I'm looking at the first few nice days and high winds. It's sort of like, all right, I don't need 50, 60 kilometer an hour headwinds to ride home into. We'll let it peter out just a bit.
You're talking about setting up a beer bike ride, or you're talking about rides in the city, building bike culture. If somebody wants to get involved, where do they go and who do they talk to get in those rides?
Well, the best thing for now would be to head over to the shop, to Dutch Cycle, and they'll get you my email, because we're going to start these as fun, non-racing, but with with an elevated pace. So it's not going to be a beach cruiser ride that we're going to do on the Saturdays, rather a nice highway ride to Lumsden or out east towards the Flying J, which is about an 80-kilometer route, and then finish up and enjoy a couple hours with some good food and beverages.
Do you like hit that hill going into Lumsden?
Yeah, the beauty with the new bypass is you can pretty much ride all the way out to Lumsden. You're only on the number 11 highway for about 3 kilometers, and you ride in through the old highway, and then you come back via the old hill in Lumsden, and it's a gorgeous ride. It's all brand new blacktop. It's exactly what we would do in Europe day in, day out.
And you could hit like Freebird Cafe.
Absolutely.
Have that chicken sandwich or pizza.
There's so many things you can hit along the way. There's great coffee in Lumsden we've stopped at. It's the thing where, like I say, I just want to tie the friendship part of it together, because with COVID the last 2 years, nobody's done anything like this together. And even if you do things together, you scatter like we're all infected when it's over. So it's nice that we actually can all hang out and be together. It's such a change. It's amazing how quick your brain forgets about what our life was like a couple years ago.
That's the same way I feel about beer. The last big great hurrah for craft beer was the big Saskatchewan Craft Beer Festival. And it felt like literally weeks after that festival, it was lockdown time.
Yes.
And it was like, oh, this COVID thing's real. And we miss it deeply, because I think beer fundamentally, like you say with cycling, is a social thing.
It is. It needs friends, and it needs good times, and it's a complement to anything fun, in my opinion. And like you say, with quantity over quality over the quantity, yeah, it's we're not getting together like we were when we were 19 to pound 24, or it's a whole other world now, and we have day jobs and responsibilities. Most of the time.
Yeah. Chasing my kid down the street. Don't ride into traffic, Like, we're getting those training wheels off on the youngest one this summer.
Oh, cool.
And he's got a death wish. Like, no fear. The oldest one, super conservative, won't risk anything. He's like, get your helmet on, get your pads on. And the youngest is just like, oh, look, oncoming traffic. Let's just ride into it.
Let's play chicken with them.
Yeah. I don't care if you got red hair, buddy. They still can't see you that well.
The courage of a kid, and you remember back to your training wheels coming off the bike, and it's really the whole feeling I've always tried to capture in sales, is that feeling of freedom when you were released from your training wheels and you were able to ride away from your parents for the first time and find yourself on a different street. That's the freedom of cycling, and that's the feeling. And that's what we're trying to bring into it, not such a serious, sterile, boring environment. It's fun. It should be fun.
I kind of like that idea that you're a little kid and your first kind of taste of being away from your parents, being free from that, big brother ever watching eye, was on a bicycle.
Basically, yes.
Yeah. Your world gets so much bigger. You go to the corner store and get a Slurpee on your bike. You can rip downtown and go buy comic books, and mom and dad aren't there to scold you. What are they going to do? Stop you from riding your bike?
Well, and we're old enough that was how you told where your friends were. You would ride down the street, and wherever the pile of bikes was laying, that's the house everybody was hanging out at. It wasn't you'd text or do anything digital. It was all you had to ride by and see. So yeah, it's really cool. Biking it's been part of my life forever, and of course, being with the family business, it sometimes was too much and overwhelming with all the bikes in my life, but here we are, 50 years old, and still haven't chased away from it.
A lifelong passion.
Absolutely.
Just like mine with beer.
And I'm getting there. I've started brewing beer at home. It was my COVID hobby I picked up, actually, and it's been a really rewarding hobby, actually.
What do you think you've learned most about beer in your hobby time?
The most shocking thing, and actually it came from one of Rebellion's ads, was how much filler is in crap beer. Like, making your own beer and seeing the grains and the malts and the hops, there's no crap, and it tastes a lot different. So you can never get a commercial big chain beer to taste like craft beer, because it must be all the preservatives or whatever the junk is that they're putting in it that ruins it. And honestly, I can't even drink that stuff anymore. I have it in my house because there's some family members that aren't quite on the craft train yet, but I don't touch it. It just sits there and collects dust.
Man, somebody wants to drink Freddy's homebrew, you got to get on his bike ride, hit up for beer and tacos, and be like, "Hey, Freddy, slide me some homebrew."
It could certainly happen, and we're actually going to try a Thursday night ride with the local cycle club, where the first ride of the month will finish at my house, and I'll get to share some of my wares. I'm curious to kind of put it under review. I mean, I think it's okay, and my close friends say it's good, but they're probably lying. So I'll be really curious to have somebody with some. They don't owe me a favor and just give me a good opinion of how I'm doing.
Yeah, that's how you're going to learn, is that positive feedback, but also constructive feedback.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love hearing you talk about cycling. I love hearing you talk about beer. I think you get it. Like, you wrapped your head around what we're trying to do with craft beer, and I love that you're on this path with us.
It's so much fun, and I hope I could. Anyone that rides a bike should be understanding what we're trying to say. It's don't jump in your car for every single thing you need. This city is small enough that you can still get around fine on a bike, and until we change our habits and until we act differently, we're not going to get different results. And my wife and I are marveled at this all the time when we travel. We'll walk 10 to 20 kilometers a day in foreign cities. And here at home, we'll jump in the car to go a kilometer to get milk. And I'm not saying I'm any better. It's just we have to start looking within and changing, and culture will change, and the city will change to accommodate us with time.
I think if infrastructure is the key.
Absolutely.
It becomes way mentally easier.
Build it and they will come.
Yeah.
If you take the fear out of something, why wouldn't you ride your bike right now with the way prices of gas are, the costs of vehicles, licensing, everything. Everything in life is going up, so you might as well spend some aggression on your pedals rather than dollars in your gas tank and pound the pedals.
What's that phrase? Burn calories, not gasoline.
Basic, pump pedals, not gas.
I got to work off this beer belly anyway. So.
It helps. Cardio is great. I'd probably be 600 pounds if I didn't ride a bike daily.
That's a ringing endorsement.
Absolutely. And now with e-bikes, anyone can ride a bike. You know, the beauty of incorporating an e-bike into this riding area is most people, aside from safety, will complain about the wind. And eventually, if you go out, you're going to face it. So e-bikes really level that off, and it's a tailwind all the time is how I sell e-bikes. It's that happy face you get when the wind pushed you home at 50K an hour. You love riding. That's an e-bike all the time.
Well, Freddie, I want to thank you for your time today, but I also want to give you an opportunity to plug your links. Where should people go if they want to learn more about Dutch?
Well, right now, the best way is through our social media. We have Dutch Cycle on Facebook and on Instagram. And our website, dutchcycle.ca, is a little bit of a disaster as we're finishing our store off right now. But we're going to be super stoked to be launching an online store, hopefully by the end of April. Was supposed to be about a month ago, but we've just ran into some delays with coding and data, and yeah. So those are your three best places to find us. And of course, the shop in the warehouse district, 1336 Lawrence Street. make the pilgrimage down there like everyone is right now. The path is very worn, and we usually open the door at 10 a.m. to people waiting.
It's just a hop, skip, and the jump from the brewery, right?
That's right. So if it's quick repair work, you make sure you drop it off, book some time at a chair over at Rebellion, and have some tacos and a nice beer, and come pick your bike up.
And you're smiling. Perfect day.
It's a beautiful day.
Rebels, thanks for listening today. If you have any questions or comments about this episode, be sure to join us on our brand new Facebook group page, the Rebellion Brewing Podcast. I'm going to include links to all things Dutch Cycle in the show notes. Be sure to go check them out. I'm also proud to let you know that we're members of the Saskatchewan Podcast Network. It's a one-stop shop for tons of locally produced shows from across our province, and you can find them at saskpodcastnetwork.com. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Untappd so you don't miss out on the latest in Sask craft beer news. Thank you for joining the Rebellion.